Even before you got engaged, you had no time. You work, you have a life, you've got family, you might have pets. You rarely have enough time to do some of the things that you want to do the most. And now that you're engaged, on top of all of that, you're planning on planning your wedding yourself. Ayla is a crazy plant lady, dog mum, and a wedding planner with a background in building digital products. She is on a mission to bring ease and fun to the wedding planning process and give engaged couples around the world the extra hand that they need during what can be a notoriously stressful time. Since launching WedSites, Ayla has helped thousands of people in over 50 countries to plan their weddings and streamline communication with their guests. Today, you'll find out what the 3 biggest wedding planning time sucks are that she sees all the time and how to avoid them. And if you want to learn a little bit more about WedSites, please jump on the Unbridely YouTube page where I share how to build your wedding website in only 6 minutes. It was a little challenge that I put to myself and I created it for one of my couples. And you can see for yourself how quick and easy it is to build a beautiful, functional, shareable and free wedding website to save you time. The link is in the show notes. Let's get into it. Unbridely is a community of pro-wedding vendors who believe in freedom and integrity in weddings, giving you options, solutions, tips and tricks to create the experience and memories that you and your fiancé really want and deserve. Because we believe that weddings are a team sport. With how-tos, stories and interviews with recently married couples, we find out what went right and what they'd change if they could go back and do it all over again. I'm Camille and welcome to the Unbridely podcast. Hi Ayla, and thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to be able to share with everyone what you do and what your platform does. And so, if you want to share a little bit about WedSites.
I was born and raised in Tokyo, Japan, but I spent most of my adult working life living in Australia. And then it was in 2016 when my best friend got engaged and asked me to be her maid of honor. This is really when I discovered the world of weddings. And what's interesting is she was in Japan at the time. Her fiance was in Washington, D.C., and I was in Melbourne. So we were in 3 different countries and time zones trying to organize this wedding. And within a couple of months, I noticed she was getting really stressed out, and she had signed up to a whole heap of different online tools and created a whole bunch of different spreadsheets, Google Docs, in an attempt to get organized. So I secretly thought to myself, there's got to be a better way to plan this wedding. So off I went to search for a better way for us to plan this wedding together. And I wanted something where we could both log on, keep track of all the different moving parts of a wedding, but I just couldn't find anything that ticked all those boxes from a wedding lens. So that was really my light bulb moment for WedSites. WedSites is an all-in-one project management platform designed specifically for newly engaged couples who are planning a wedding to help them from everything from setting up a wedding website, managing online RSVPs, and keeping track of all of their wedding to-dos in one place. My partner and I had just gotten engaged, so we were testing out the platform alongside 100 other couples who believed in our mission to make wedding planning easier and more enjoyable. And now WedSites is my full-time gig, and we've got couples who are using our platform in over 50 countries, which is crazy to think about.
I love your platform, Ayla. And we've talked about it a few times, but it's the simplicity, as in you don't have to be a tech head to be able to use it, do you?
That's right. We try to make it really easy to use, but specifically designed from the couple's perspective so that they can work together in one place.
Perhaps if you can tell the listener how WedSites is different from other wedding websites and planners and all the other software that couples can use.
Yeah, so I guess what makes WedSites different from specifically wedding website builders out there is all of our templates are entirely customizable, so you can create something that looks completely different from another couple, even though you're using the same exact template. So for example, if you were working with a graphic designer, you can import your own graphics to make it match your wedding stationery, and no one would know that you're using the same template as the next couple. The big difference is that it's powered by a suite of planning tools and project management tools that allow the couple to plan, or anyone else who's helping them plan the wedding, to work together from that one place and stay on top of everything. So for example, you can set up a custom RSVP questionnaire to get everything you need to know from each guest, including their dietary preferences, And once everyone RSVPs, you can start creating your seating chart. So then once that's all finalized and your seating chart is all good to go, you can easily print out this information and hand it over to your catering team or your venue coordinator, anyone who's setting up those tables. And this document's going to include, of course, where they're sitting, but also their dietary requirements. So no information will get lost along the way. And you can also send emails through the platform so that you can let guests know if there was a last minute change, the ceremony time got moved up or moved back, things like that. Or they organized a shuttle last minute. If you want to take the shuttle, we've organized it at this time. Another, standout feature of ours is the event management side of the platform. So automatically when you sign up for WedSites, you plug in your wedding date and we'll give you a personalized checklist with due dates based on your personal timeline of how much time you have to plan your wedding. So that will give you an idea of what needs to be done at what time. We also have a budgeting tool. And then, of course, we've got a vendor feature where you can add in all of the different vendors that you've booked, add in the different invoices, contracts, and that will also allow you to set up payment reminders. So then you can really get a holistic view of how you're tracking along with your budget, because that is one of the most stressful parts of planning a wedding for most people.
Absolutely. What are the 3 biggest wedding planning time sucks that you see couples falling into?
I would say right out the gate, I recommend couples to create a new email address specifically for wedding planning. Do this right after you get engaged. Use this email for everything related to your wedding. So when you start reaching out to vendors, use that email address. When you're signing up to wedding blogs, when you're going to wedding expos and signing up for those giveaways, anything related to your wedding should be found in this inbox. And that way it won't get lost in your personal or your work email. And not to mention, most couples, wedding planning is like a marathon, right? And also you need to take a break here and there. Sometimes you get burnt out. And it's not nice seeing a bunch of wedding-related emails in your personal inbox when you're trying to de-stress and not think about it. So from a mental health perspective, I highly recommend it as well. Another one is dealing with mail-in RSVPs. I'm a stationery junkie, so don't get me wrong, I love a beautiful invitation, but I highly recommend asking your guests to RSVP online. With RSVP cards that can be posted back, first of all, you've got to pay for the return postage, which can add up quite a bit. And the worst part of all is waiting around for them to be sent back. Some guests forget. It always happens. And then you're left twiddling your thumbs, wondering when it's going to show up in your mailbox. By asking guests to RSVP online, one, it's easy for them. They don't need to leave their house, so it's super easy. And then it's also great for you because even if they do forget, all you need to do is send them a gentle reminder to ask them if they can, RSVP on your website. And then boom, you've got all your RSVPs back within that day. And then you can move on to the next thing. And plus, if you're using something like WedSites, all this stuff's automatically stored. So then you don't need to go off and manually count these RSVP cards and manually update spreadsheets. It'll all be there for you. So that's definitely a great way to save some time, is by going online with your RSVPs.
If you had a sweary, chocolate-addicted, wine-sipping fairy godmother who could help you with your wedding planning, what would you wish for? Perhaps no more waking up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, wondering what you've forgotten, or fretting about your RSVPs. Maybe no more spreadsheets or post-it notes or endless to-do lists. Well, I can help you with all of that. WedSites is an Australian wedding website builder, guest management software, and wedding project planner all in one. Why is this such a game changer for you? Well, imagine everything to do with your wedding being in one place, updated in real time in the cloud, shareable to anyone else that's helping you, password protected for your guests, with notifications to tell you what needs to be done next and by when. It's amazing, right? I love how easy WedSites is to set up and use, and how there are no ads on the platform yelling at you to spend more money on your wedding. To get started on your very own free wedding website, just head to wedsites.com. That's WEDSITES.com, and enter the code UNbridelyPod, that's Unbridely POD, to get 10% off their paid planning tools. The link is in the show notes.
And then the last time suck that I see a lot of couples fall into happens in the last month leading up to the wedding day. And this is when time is of the absolute essence, right? You're trying to tie up loose ends. And this is when guests might start bugging you for different things. Well, I shouldn't say bugging because that's kind of mean, but they need answers to questions, and more often than not, if one person's asking that question, 10 other people are wondering the same thing. But if you do create a wedding website, please, please, please make it work for you. And what I mean by this is to make it the first line of defense. So what you can do is create a FAQ section on your wedding website and answer questions like, what's the dress code? Is there a gift registry? How do I get to the venue? When do I need to arrive? Are kids allowed? And by preemptively doing this, you can really just direct guests to the wedding website so that they can find all the information they need to know about your wedding rather than calling you while you're frantically trying to tie up loose ends.
That is such good advice. Such good advice, Ayla. It's something that I say to my couples a lot. In that last week, when couples sometimes take a little bit of time off and they go, oh, we've got all this time off, and there's this perception that they're going to be able to relax or something. And I'm like, oh, you dear engaged couple, no. You're going to be busier than you've ever been in your entire life because approximately half of your guest list will want to contact you in this next week because they've got questions. It's the truth. Yeah. And how about those guests that arrive to the ceremony, but of course, don't take their paper invitations with them, and they don't even know what time they're going to the next thing, whether there's pre-dinner drink somewhere, reception somewhere, whether they've got transport or not. And yeah, they've just made it to the first part of the day and then they're like, now what?
They're like, what happens next?
Yes, it's so common. It's so common. And it's a little bit funny, but when you've got, say, 50 out of your 100, 120 guests all saying the same thing, it can detract from your joy and your sense of just peace and enjoyment on the day itself.
Go to the wedding website, find everything there. I'm like such a big advocate for that. And even just having questions that can be a little bit awkward, like for example, about kids, like are kids allowed? Rather than having to have that conversation with each person, it's like put it on your wedding website and then people get the hint.
But also, Ayla, with that in particular, because I know there are a lot of troubles with couples when they're going, okay, we want to invite this kid, that kid, but not this kid, that kid. If it's something that you can put on your wedding website and go, this is our blanket policy around kids coming to our wedding, it also says no favourites. It also says everyone is treated equally, which I think is a really smart way of getting everyone to go, oh, okay, that's how they want their wedding to go, rather than it's a personal affront because they don't want my little son Jimmy to come.
Absolutely. That's what it's for. It can do the talking for you so you don't need to be having those conversations. So definitely a great way to save time.
So Ayla, what's next for you?
Over the past 2 years, we noticed a lot of wedding planners were signing up or being invited to WedSites by their clients to kind of help them organize their wedding. And of course, most couples will only plan one wedding, but for wedding professionals who manage multiple weddings throughout the year, we've been working on a business dashboard to give wedding pros a centralized place to coordinate, plan, and keep an eye out on where their couples are in the planning process. So WedSites for Business is currently available in beta. If any wedding pros are interested, they can sign up for free and try it out at wedsites.com/business.
I know a bunch of planners who would love to have those resources at their fingertips. Yeah, that's exciting, Ayla.
Yeah, very exciting. And we're hoping to roll out more features down the track as well.
And so, Ayla, if any of these engaged couples listening would like to have a look at WedSites and try it out for themselves, where can they find you?
So for any listeners who are interested in learning more about WedSites or want to create their own wedding website, you can sign up for free at wedsites.com. That's WedSites.com. It's like websites, but with a D, so wedsites.com. And if you want to take advantage of any of the planning tools that we have on the platform, you can get 10% off any of our paid plans by using the code UnbridelyPod.
Ayla, do you have any last, bits of advice for engaged couples? What would you say to the couple that just got engaged?
I've interviewed a lot of couples in the early days of researching things for WedSites. I've interviewed far too many couples who start off their wedding planning process with a classic Monica Geller style wedding planning binder or a notebook. And then they start jotting notes on little scraps of paper because they didn't carry around their big binder, and then only to lose that paper midway somewhere. And then they realize, I should go digital. That's probably a better solution. And then they find that all their wedding planning is scattered across various notebooks, scraps of paper, Post-its, Google Docs, spreadsheets, and email threads. So I really recommend going digital from the get-go with wedding planning for this reason. That way it's always accessible when you're on the go. And it's not the 90s anymore, so I don't think it's really realistic to be lugging around this huge notebook anymore. We care about our backs, And so I just think going digital and just having that with you have your phone all the time. So you just never know when inspiration is going to strike. So you can just make a quick note if something inspires you and you want to add that to your wedding. Or if you need to make a quick note about a reminder about something, you can always do that when you're out and about if you have your phone. So go digital from the get-go.
I highly agree, Ayla. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your wonderful platform too. And hope to chat with you again really soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure being here.
I hope you loved that interview with Ayla. She honestly has such amazing insight and really practical advice for engaged couples to keep this as simple as possible and to save you time to stop the stress. And so just to recap, the 3 biggest time sucks that Ayla from WedSites sees engaged couples falling into all the time is number 1 around communication. And so she recommends to streamline your process by creating a brand new email address specifically for your wedding that both you and your fiancé have access to. The number 2 time suck that she sees is around RSVPs, the drag of sending them out, getting them back, recording them. Ayla believes that digital RSVPs are the way to go. There's no need to count up the RSVP cards. There's no need to make separate lists or spreadsheets for everyone. It's a win-win. And number 3, the 3rd biggest wedding time suck that she sees couples experiencing is during that last month before the big day. So she recommends creating a frequently asked questions section on your wedding website for all the things that your guests will need to know and want to ask you during that final month. So include things like what the dress code is. Do you have a gift registry? How do people use it? How do they get to the venue? When do they need to arrive? Are kids allowed? All those conversations that you don't want to have once, let alone 100 times. Put it all in your frequently asked questions section of your wedding website and breathe easy. That about wraps it up for this episode of the Unbridely podcast. For the links and resources we mentioned, please head to the show notes. And if you love the show, please review and subscribe on the podcast platform you're on now so you don't miss out on a single episode. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, weddings are a team sport. Catch you soon.